Where is the wise man? Where is the scholar? Where is the philosopher of this age? Get down! Baltimore!
What are they getting? Everything out of me. They gonna get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that. Believe that.
All right, welcome on back to another edition of the Baltimore Beatdown podcast. It is Thursday night, February 24th, 2022. My name is Jake Luke, and I am joined on my screen by Benjamin Powers. How's it going, bud?
Going well. Trying to avoid Russia, which is a difficult task. They apparently don't have enough land, despite having a lot of land. So here we are.
Yeah, I guess we're getting into that right off the bat, huh? War in Europe. The first time.
What is it good for?
The first time in earnest in a very long time. Very scary stuff. Seems like they were just kind of waiting for the ground to thaw out there, and now it's going to be game on. So yeah, little scary stuff there to start the show with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you threw me for a little bit of a loop there. I didn't know that's exactly where we were going, but yeah, that happened last night. So that's kind of all anyone was thinking about today. Kind of weird, talking about, we've had obviously serious things go on during the podcast. This one's a little bit different, but yeah, definitely touch on that a little bit. And yeah, definitely a weird day today, but I mean, it kind of makes some of this stuff seem a little bit trivial, especially when there's not a lot going on Ravens news wise, if we're being honest, and we're not getting any draft stuff quite yet. We're kind of deliberately waiting on that. So it's an interesting spot to be in. That's for sure.
It is. It's the lull a little bit. We got the combine coming next week. And after that, we'll get into the beatdown big board and start breaking it on down. But free agency stuff, we can speculate and say, sign this guy, sign that guy. We'll see. A lot of guys will end up getting extended before, free agency even opens with the team they're originally with. Some guys will get franchise tagged, all that good stuff. So we're in a little bit of a purgatory, but it's a nice little break and can think about a couple more big scheme things and get ready for another fun time of the year.
Yeah, good bit of news that the combine actually is going on. That actually was a little bit of a news story that was actually sort of flying under the radar. Some of the sort of bubble protocols that the NFL was proposing for these prospects to have to go through, and sort of it sounded like them and their agents were kind of not really about that, having them sort of be penned into their bubble. What is it, in Dallas this year?
Yeah.
So yeah, it sounded like there was maybe a little bit of a dispute going on. It sounded like the combine might have been in jeopardy, but the NFL, as always, they always find a way to make their things go on. COVID was this big issue up until the playoffs, and then all of a sudden it wasn't an issue. Then it was an issue again. Then the combine wasn't going to happen, so it wasn't an issue again. So yeah, it's just sort of funny how the wheels kind of seem to turn behind the scenes there. But yeah, combine coming up, free agency going to be coming right after that. That's where and when a lot of the free agency stuff actually sort of starts percolating behind the scenes between the agents and the GMs and stuff like that. So still a couple more weeks to go until then. We do have some Ravens news. So we had on the 22nd, so that was 2 days ago at this point, Ravens hired a new athletic trainer. And you would think that this would not really typically be big news for another team, but this is the Ravens. And, after the year they had, frankly, it kind of probably should be news to some extent that Adrian Dixon was hired as their head certified athletic trainer via a statement from General Manager Eric DaCosta. Let me see if I can find his quote here. He said, "We are excited to announce the addition of Adrian Dixon as our new head certified athletic trainer. Over the course of the last month, after meeting with multiple qualified candidates, it became quite evident that Adrian possessed all the traits and skills necessary to help us become the best player wellness program in the National Football League. We were very impressed by Adrian's servant leadership, his passion for the challenge, and his vision for our training room. Adrian will work closely with Dr. Andy Tucker, our chief medical officer, and lead a talented and respected staff of trainers, including Ron Medlin, Kevin Dombrowski, Mike Blankenship, among others. Adrian will start tomorrow and lead us at the combine next week in Indianapolis." So this is, yeah, like I said, it seems like something that shouldn't be big news, but after the year they just had, it is a couple nuggets there. Obviously, a lot of people immediately started clamoring and saying, Does this mean Saunders is gone? Does this mean some sort of major shakeup? It seems to me it's more just like an additive thing, and like that was confirmed in the fact that Saunders is going to be staying. I think I don't know if that was confirmed by anyone, but it seems that's going to be the case. And yeah, it just seems like an additive thing where they mentioned player wellness, and that was kind of the terminology that I keyed in on. It seems like it's going to be more on the training side of things as opposed to the like medical side. So I don't know how you interpreted this whole thing, but of course we had to have this be a big news story.
Yeah, when you go to the trainer's room, it's because you're hurt, and the trainer's job is to get you back on the field, make sure your workload is monitored, all that good stuff. So they, I think, kind of demoted Ron Medellin from that role. So they've got a lot of guys returning from injury, and looks like they wanted a little bit of a shakeup. Ronnie Stanley's situation, Eric DeCosta spoken about how he feels like he, messed up and took the blame, and maybe that's a little bit more so not having a real accurate system in place or really, precise enough way to realize whether, a guy like Stanley coming off of a major injury, a guy like Nick Boyle, who they thought was going to be ready, and how to properly gauge that, get them back on the field. So Titans have dealt with some serious injuries over the years. They did draft Jeffrey Simmons freshly off of a torn ACL. He comes back, turns into a real, high profile, high impact player. It's hard to, comment too much without having enough expertise or being an expert in the field at all. But feels like they, just want to make sure that they have someone who has maybe a more modern take or a more effective measurement or effective practice in ensuring that guys get back on the field and return to a high level of play. They have countless players in every possible way returning from injury. So someone needs to navigate those waters, make sure that, there's a proper workload in place and that there can be some preventative measures taken. Steve Saunders, strength and conditioning coach, not the same thing as what a trainer is. There's not trainers that are on the sideline of college football games with, 1800s Western mustaches and cut off t-shirts. Typically it's going to be the strength and conditioning guys. So a little bit different there, and hopefully he's able to get it done and give the Ravens some good fortune in returning from rehab and injury and getting guys back on the field ultimately. So we shall see, and it'll be hard to ever know because that's not something that we really get a lot of insight into or maybe have as much knowledge as in other aspects.
I will say he's stepping into a great spot because it just feels like, and we've been saying this for a while, it feels like we're looking at a pretty good amount of positive regression going on with this injury thing in 2022. That's just my read on it. Feels like you can't do much worse than you did last year. So he's probably going to be stepping into a training room that is not nearly as full as what Medellin was dealing with last year. Or it doesn't sound like that, but obviously it might seem that way. So yeah, hopefully he does bring all of that and more, as do, some of these new guys on the coaching staff. We've already talked about some of these moves, but Ravens officially announced 5 new coaching hires. So I think we talked about Zach Orr, who's going to be coming back and coaching the inside linebackers already, but they're also hiring George Godsey to coach the tight ends. I think Rich Angelo, he had been there for a while actually coaching that position. I think he left. And then Rob Leonard is going to be doing outside linebackers. So it's kind of, you got Orr and Rob Leonard filling in for that Rob Ryan role. You got Mike Devlin coming in for assistant offensive line coach, and Ryan Osborne, defensive quality control, who's a Mike McDonald guy from Michigan, who seems like a very young, kind of memeable, interesting option. So some of these names, are they doing anything for you?
Yeah, I mean, Rob Leonard, a tenured guy, been around the league quite a bit. Spent the last couple of years with the Dolphins, and spent 6 seasons with the Giants as an assistant as well. So I think he's kind of the one of the more tenured ones there. But new group, more shakeup ultimately, and a lot of turnover. It's a lot of new faces, and it is for the second straight year. They had to really replenish and get back to figuring out what they want in place. It's been a lot of turnover over the last 2 seasons. So with them missing the playoffs, coming off a very disappointing season, supposed to be competing for the AFC championship last year and not being there, a lot of new faces there yet again, helps change things up, get some new perspective. But at the same time, it can be a little difficult to navigate those waters. And for John Harbaugh, who's a longer tenured head coach, to turn over again for probably the fifth time having such a major turnover in his tenure in Baltimore, it can be tough to navigate. So Harbaugh's got to really get these guys in line. Seems like it's a lot of really kind of stock guys to a degree that are going to kind of keep their nose to the grindstone and try and put this plan in place and jump back on this horse. So hopefully it helps with the message, helps with the locker room, helps with, being a little bit more conducive to a more accountable locker room or whatever is needed. So nothing crazy on these guys, but we'll see. Can go either way. Going to hear more from them over time, and a lot of the familiar faces of years past are gone now. So Joe D still there on the offensive side of the football. They do still have Chris Hewitt, who's been there a while as well now at this point. So Anthony Weaver gets promoted to assistant head coach. Feels like he's, got that Dwayne Johnson to him, wants to make his way up the ranks, and doing so after having a tough stint in Houston. Gets an interview for a defensive coordinator position, and we'll see what happens with him. I feel like, there's some name value or something with him, a little bit of star value, the way he conducts himself, has a big charismatic way of carrying himself on and off the football field. So those guys need to help reinvigorate Harbaugh's team ultimately. And I think that Mike Macdonald is going to be, a fresh coach to bring a little bit of gusto back, a little bit of accountability back, a little bit of a more challenging presence, hopefully, to fight these players a little bit, get a little energy out of them, get a little salt and vinegar out of them, and get them passionate about getting in the film room, being on the practice field, and doing what you need to do to be a championship football team.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea of McDonald doing that. I could definitely see that happen, especially with that mic'd up video of him bouncing around the practice field in the bucket hat and the camo shorts. I think some more of that energy would be nice. But yeah, man, I mean, Weaver, I didn't even mention him. It seems like he's kind of on the fast track. I could see him leaving around this time next year to at least take a defensive coordinator job, maybe a head coaching job if things break right for him. Obviously that's some conjecture, but it's just something that I could see happen. He does, to your point, have what I think is a pretty commanding presence, and John Harbaugh spoke pretty highly of him when the Broncos were interviewing him. So what I do like about the other hires that are coming in is sort of the combination of youth and experience. So you got some experience in Zach Orr, but he's still a younger guy. And then Godsey is a guy who's actually been around for a while. And then you've got some of the other younger guys in the mix, like Osborne, who's just doing like a quality control role. So it's kind of even nebulous what he's going to be doing. But it does seem like it's an interesting infusion of sort of new blood, but also guys that have been around the block a little bit and know what they're doing. So hopefully it all fits together really well. I'm expecting it to do so, because I think, maybe, to your point, I think maybe they could have used a little bit of a shakeup on this coaching staff. I know people were expecting it more so on the offensive side of the ball, and we got a little bit of that, but definitely seems like the defensive side of the ball is definitely getting an overhaul in that department. So hopefully it does reap some benefits for them. Next thing I had on the docket here, and this isn't really like news, but it's more of a extension of a conversation that we've been having for a while, and we might be getting tired of it, but it's of course the Lamar Jackson contract situation. And pretty much it seems like a little bit of, I hesitate to say Cold War has ensued here, but it kind of feels like that a little bit, where the negotiations are moving at a snail's pace. The Ravens are saying they're moving at Jackson's pace. Jackson is saying nothing. There's been some, maybe some misconstrued ideas and statements being thrown out there about how he's like not even represented at all. He is, but it's not by an agent. He has a kind of a team that's working with him, is our understanding. And so Adam Schefter is obviously like super plugged in, and maybe part of the reason that he says what he says here in the quote that I'm about to read is that he doesn't have an agent to talk to in this situation. And he would probably prefer that Lamar Jackson has one. So he did, but he was on the podcast with the My Sports Update guy. I don't know what it's called. Ari Myrov, I think his name is. And he basically says that if he's Lamar Jackson, he is not going to step on the field in 2022 until he has a deal signed. So he says, quote, "If I'm my own agent, I'm making sure that my deal gets done, especially with the way that he plays. I'd be real leery about stepping on the football field until my deal is done. I think Baltimore is absolutely interested in extending him, and the reason it hasn't gotten extended is because Lamar has been more interested in playing football and doing whatever he does. At some point, to me, it's in his best interest to sit down and get that deal done. If I were Lamar Jackson, that would be my offseason priority. to make sure that I don't step foot on a football field again until I have one of those lucrative new contracts that puts me in line with these higher paid quarterbacks in the league. And so it sounds like Shefty, who might actually be plugged in this situation, it does sound like, and this is something EDC has said too, it does sound like the ball very much is in Lamar's court at this point. And like, if this thing is going to get done, he's probably going to have to come to the table and come a little bit harder in the paint that he has been lately. So I'm not sure what's going on with that, but just kind of another confirmation along the line that, talks are really not progressing very much at all.
Yeah, sounds like the Ravens really don't know what he wants. Sounds like he's not really saying what he wants. His mom has a certain level of involvement, and of course, everybody's mommy thinks they're worth the world, thinks they're worth 10 billion love dollars and whatever. So I don't know. Feels like there's not a huge level of seriousness coming from Lamar Jackson about it, and the Ravens really don't know where to start, and they want to have their negotiation with the agent. And of course, Adam Schefter wishes he had an agent and has some wise words coming directly from agents that would love to represent Lamar Jackson or whatever it is. But, offer him the Josh Allen contract, see what he says. I don't know. It feels like, they want to do a negotiation and Lamar's just like sitting there, not saying anything, and want to see the Ravens sweat and bring a big number to the table. So I don't know. Throw him the Josh Allen contract, give yourself some flexibility from year 1, year 2 of it, and go from there. I don't know. Just see what happens at the end. I don't know. I just don't really care to partake in it too much. It's just the number one way to drive yourself crazy is to get deep into the wormhole of quarterback contract negotiation and Dak Prescott's and whoever else is and this, that, and the other, and rumors. And the Ravens think that Lamar might not be this and something that everybody starts hearing from some guy in a Twitter space saying something about something, and all these fake things happen. So whatever,
Shout out to the Twitter space community, by the way. Those are some dogged fans and some dogged analysts. Great people.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know. Whenever Lamar wants to get it done, I guess they'll get it done.
Do you think he's put a number out there? Because I'm not sure he has.
I don't think he has.
It's weird, man. It's weird.
He just said, he plays football. He's a football player. And again, I just kind of feel like from the things I've heard, he's just kind of sitting tight and seeing what the Ravens do. And the Ravens don't want to offend him by not offering him enough, which is such a bullshit thing to say, in my opinion.
Cop out.
Yeah, well, we don't want to offend it. No, you just don't want to make the first offer, and Lamar's not saying anything. So you're not going to offend him if you offer him the Josh Allen contract. If you don't want to offer that, then that's fine. So I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. We'll hear about it when we get more.
Yeah, it's speaking of cop-outs, I feel like that our analysis on this whole thing, and it's like basically still is like we don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be fun to watch, which is great.
I don't think it's going to be fun to watch. I actually hate it. I don't care to really participate in it too much. I think that people are going crazy. I think that the notion of pay the man. I think that, all right. I think there's a lot of Lamar fans. I think Lamar's a great quarterback. I am a Lamar fan. He's been the background on my phone since the day he was drafted. But, I'm a Ravens fan, and I would like for them to do things that are going to be conducive to the team winning a Super Bowl. And I think there's a lot of younger fans that are Lamar fans and maybe not necessarily a Ravens fan. And hypothetically, if Lamar were drafted by a different team, would not care about what happens with the Ravens. I hope that they figure something out that gives the Ravens flexibility, that gives Lamar enough to be committed and happy and want to be the man and, put all the weight on his shoulders and elevate the franchise and all that good stuff, like we've seen with, Mahomes, Josh Allen, those quarterbacks that are successful around his age and his draft class. So whatever it takes to make that the possibility. I think that there is an interesting ability for the Ravens who can generate some cap space this year. They can restructure. They can do whatever they want. If someone becomes available that they want, if they want Tyrann Mathieu for $50 million, they can make it happen. But the Bills and the Chiefs have already kind of ponied up. Mahomes had a $7 million cap hit. I think Allen had a $10 million cap hit. and Mahomes can be restructured and Josh Allen can be restructured. Absolutely. But at some point, they're going to start having to have $45 million cap hits in the next year or two. And that might be the Ravens' opportunity to have Lamar Jackson have the small cap hit, have an extra $40-50 million in your pocket, have more certainty with a Ronnie Stanley, have more certainty with everybody coming back from injury, which, it's all Ravens revenge season 2022, but it's also Ravens all coming off of major injuries. Let's see if guys are going to be able to freaking play, and maybe not. And then, so I feel like this year is just going to be a weird year in that sense. We'll see what they do in free agency. We'll get into that more so when that time comes a little closer, but it feels like this year again is going to be another year of kind of fighting more so than dominating. And then I feel like they have the potential, if things do go well, if Lamar Jackson does sign a contract, if they figure it, get some clarity in a couple situations, add a couple young players in this draft class that are impact players, and move on to the next year. That I feel like they have a real market inefficiency in the AFC to be able to go do some major things. That can all get shaken up. They do have the ability to go sign 2, impact guys in free agency, draft 10 players. Hopefully you get 4 or 5 impact players out of that, which would be an outstanding draft. And then you can go win an AFC and compete for a Super Bowl, next year, the year after. But just a weird time. A lot of weird stuff has gone down in this last year. And I don't know. That's the long and short of it for me.
That's where, if I'm DaCosta, I'm probably trying to get this thing done because it's going to clear some much needed space for you, to our point. And we've been saying outside of this show and probably on the show that if they want to do something, they sure as hell can do it. Because you look at the Rams and you look at Sean Payton and his little national debt analogy that he made. Some teams, they have stuff they want to do and they just figure it out and they don't care. And there's merits to the way they do things and there's merits to the way the Ravens currently do things. But if they want to do stuff, they can do it, and they can already do that, and it'll be made even easier if they do get this extension done. So if I'm DaCosta, I might be trying to get all these parties to the table as quickly as possible and bang this thing out, because it's just it seems like that's going to help you more than it's going to hurt you. And if you commit to him for the next 4 or 5 years and you're talking about pushing these cap hits around, well, let's say things don't work out. Okay, you got to take 1 year, 2 years of a tough cap hit from him, and then you move on or whatever. And for the record, I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think he's going to be their quarterback for at least another 5 years, and they're going to be getting good football out of him over that period of time. So it just seems like something that should be a no-brainer. Of course, it's not. I understand it's a business and there's more to it than all that, but it just feels like one of those things where we're just sort of spinning our wheels a little bit at this point, and it probably is going to help all parties involved to just finally get it done. So let's do it. We've been talking about this for a long time. It's not just been this year. We've literally been talking about this since last offseason at this point. You remember in the summer when it was oh man, total guarantee, it's right around the corner, this thing's coming down the pike, and here we are still talking about it. So let's get that done. And then lastly on the docket here, this came out just a couple hours ago. Ravens and Tony Jefferson are going to be reuniting. Article from Cliff Brown. Baltimore has re-signed the 30-year-old safety. The team announced Thursday Jefferson was signed to Baltimore's practice squad on December 13th and was quickly elevated to the 53-man roster with the Ravens secondary decimated by injuries. He performed as if he had never been away, leading the team with 10 tackles in Week 16 against the Bengals and ending the season with 18 tackles in 4 games while also contributing on special teams. So no details or anything like that. But it just seems like he's probably going to be getting one of those league minimum deals, something pretty short term, and he'll be back in the picture for 2022, which is great. We've been talking about this for a while now, that of course he should come back. It makes sense for both parties to use that parlance again in different context here. But Tony Jefferson, fan favorite, locker room favorite, back in the locker room for 2022.
Yeah, I've always been a big Tony Jefferson guy. I was really excited when they signed him from Arizona a few years back. Felt like, kind of feels like he played kind of the way that I would say Patrick Queen has played the last couple of years, with a little indecisiveness at times, and then some really flashy, huge, great moments and good games, but some inconsistency. Jefferson talked about how he's watched more film in the last year than he has at any point in his career, and you can tell that he just came in with a fire lit as soon as he got back to Baltimore, was making plays on special teams left and right. Feels like it's the perfect segue from co-cap into co-cap 2. And I think that's going to be Tony Jefferson's kind of role. Dime backer, maybe a little bit more capable of stepping in defensively, helping out, and doing some things than Levine was. But a few years ago, Levine was somewhat of a significant role, playing some dimebacker, I think, with Weddle and Tony Jefferson, good bit 2017-ish and a little bit 2018. So excited to have him. Great dude, lots of fun, brings some personality, some much needed personality. It feels like to the defensive side of the football. It's, maybe not as wacky and wild and wet as some of the other guys, but a little bit more personality to the locker room. I think they need some more of that. Would love to see another couple additions that can kind of solidify a new culture on the defensive side of the football. Maybe Campbell coming back again to be that, vocal veteran leader, and then bringing some guys like Tyrann Mathieu or Marcus Williams or someone else that can be in their prime and just contribute to a new era in that locker room on that side of the football that feels like really has waned out in the last couple of years. So happy to have T-Jeff, probably a cheap contract. Vaz probably, will pretend that, the Ravens are ruining their cap situation by spending an extra $316,000 on Tony Jefferson.
Of those guys, it adds up to $15 million.
Yeah, if you take 15 Tony Jeffersons, you can sign, a premier player on a premier position. But move, like having him, feels like he's part of the family. I guess is the best way to put it. He's part of the Ravens family, fits their, familiarity and that family culture that they like to have. But ultimately a guy that you like to root for. It's easy to root for, and we'll see who else they can bring in on that side of the football to move the needle. Yeah,
definitely. Obviously that's just sort of the first domino to drop for a defense that probably is going to have a lot of turnover. We're going to see what happens with a guy like Averett, with a guy like Deshaun Elliott. We're going to see if they're going to bring in some of those free agent safeties, to your point, or obviously one big ticket guy. We'll see what happens with the draft with some big names like Hamilton, maybe going to be able to fall to them, hopefully. So yeah, it just feels like they're obviously not going to be done at the safety position here, but he is hopefully going to be embracing that hybrid role, like you mentioned with Levine, who actually did have some pretty significant involvement. He was involved in down the stretch in 2018. He made a couple plays on that drive where they clutched up to win the division in 2018. So yeah, seems like a seamless transition for him. It's one that I'm looking forward to, and yeah, just a good move all around. We've been calling for it for a while, and it is officially finalized. And speaking of officially finalized, I have nothing else on the docket. Do you have anything else, bud?
Nothing. Just running through the comments here. Don C says, the first time I've seen Jake without a hat. Winter's usually Hat Boys.
A little bit lately.
Winter's usually Hat Boys a good bit. A little more cozy and snug and keeps you warm.
Yeah.
Who's a promising mid to late round power back?
Speaking of winter, Jesus Christ, this weather lately, not to be weather guy, but man, not to be Maryland in the late winter, early spring guy, but man, this weather, bipolar, right? That's Maryland for you. One day it's 70, the next day it's freezing rain. You never know what you're going to get. That was me today in the office.
Slinging those around.
Oh yeah. Fan
there
favorite.
You go.
Those always play, those comments.
They always do. Promising mid to late round power back. Damian Pierce, Zeus White out of Georgia. A couple guys that I like a good bit in that role. A couple more we'll get into ultimately. Jordan Davis or Travis Jones. It's a tough one. This is a tough one. I like Jordan Davis, man. I think he gets over scrutinized a little bit. I think it's kind of a little analysis paralysis with him. He's been talked about for a long time. Travis Jones I like a lot too. Don C, Jake Spencer, what's up, guys? Players, what's up?
Gangsters, what's up, guys?
Deuce 1042. Basically, John and EDC were not pleased with the defense at all. Don't blame them. Yeah, it was bad, and they really just were missing one or two guys defensively, as we've talked about. Wish Lamar would get signed already, or at least start spending on a great O-line. We've heard from a little birdie that is kind of our little ace in the hole, I guess, that nothing crazy, but just that DeCosta's pissed about what happened with the line last year. It was tough with Orlando Brown's situation, compounded by Ronnie Stanley's injury, and really wants to focus on the offensive line. So I think they're going to make some moves. Wouldn't hate to see them make a trade for like one of those third or fourth round picks and really just find a starter along there at right tackle or something. I think would be really cool to see them. I don't know who, we could speculate on it, but would really love to see like a fourth or third round pick go get a starter.
We did have Aaron Wilson, formerly, I think, of the Sun, who he's in Houston now. And I'm not sure
I
who
think
he's
he's the Chronicle in Houston now. Yeah.
So he's down there, but he's still kind of like a national insider. And he said,
Still has a lot of Ravens connections. Always releasing some quick hitting Ravens stuff when they sign someone kind of, mid level or something. And
yeah, he's kind of just sort of that insider role. And so he tweeted today, I think, that the Bengals might be having some interest in Bradley Bozeman if he does hit the market. So that would be an interesting sort of domino piece in the AFC North, where the Bengals would get stronger on the line, which they need, and the Ravens would get, I guess, ostensibly weaker on the line, which they don't need. But it feels like Bradley Bozeman leaving might be kind of signed, sealed, delivered at this point anyway. So that will be an interesting chess piece to move within the division.
Weird to me. I think Trey Hopkins is not bad, and I don't think Bradley Bozeman is a huge upgrade from Trey Hopkins. Trey Hopkins is not a free agent, but I guess they're going to cut him if they want to bring in Bradley Bozeman. And to me, I like Bozeman. I know PFF, Brad Spielberger, who's pretty plugged into values and things, has Bozeman getting like $7 million a year, 3-year deal, like $21 million. I know Bozeman's agent, Joe Linda, wants to value that he's played guard, but it's like he's not that good at guard. He's like okay at guard and like an above average center. So someone else wants to overpay, whatever. That's fine. Ryan Jensen, would be sweet. See what he ends up getting. Apparently that's going to be more expensive. And I guess that goes into prospects Providence. Can't wait for the first day of free agency when the Ravens don't sign anyone and Ravens Twitter explodes. Yeah, it happened one time. So that's all that they've ever done, is only ever not have a big day one. Yeah, that's the Ravens way. They never sign any big name free agents throughout the years that have helped them win games or Super Bowls. Definitely. And I'm not poking fun at you, Prospects Providence, but the younger fan base, it feels like. Now I feel like I'm getting old head now. And yeah, just everybody just shut up.
Well, the weird thing about that is like that happened in 2019, but they waited and then they signed Earl Thomas, which was like one of the biggest signings on the market that year.
Yeah, he was like the second biggest safety contract ever given out at the time, behind Landon Collins. Excuse the hell out of me, because the other day I was like, I don't know what everyone's talking about. They signed Earl Thomas to a market-setting deal, and someone goes, Landon Collins actually got 0.4 more AAV, and Tyrann Mathieu had a slightly higher AAV. And I was like, okay. It was like, excuse me, top of the market, not market setting.
They pried Earl Thomas away from Kansas City. Kansas City signs Tyrann Mathieu, and it looked like the Ravens were the winner of that deal. So, this whole free agency thing, and I know there are extenuating circumstances there. Can't talk tonight. But the free agency, like, it's cliche to say, but it can be fool's gold at times.
Usually is, a lot of the time. And the Bengals, everyone's like, the Bengals did it through free agency. It's like they signed one big name. They signed one big ticket guy, Trey Hendrickson. Everybody else was like $20 million deals, $15 million deals. Guys that
Hendrickson type guy this year, people would lose their shit. Like, he was good in New Orleans, but like, you know what I mean?
It felt like he was a little bit of fool's gold, but he didn't turn out to be. Turned out to be quite a good player. It was a great signing for them, but free agency usually means if you're spending a ton in free agency, you have a lot of holes to fill, and just they can look good for a year, but when you look back on the entirety of those deals, a lot of times the Patriots splurged in free agency. They spent $70 million on Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. And those guys, aren't even catching 20, 30 balls a piece. I think Hunter Henry probably caught like 30. Jonnu Smith, who knows what the hell is going on with him. They signed Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne. And, you get some production out of those guys. And then one of them gets hurt here and there, 2, 3. So it's, supplementing, filling your holes. If you can go get someone who's your guy, and it feels like the Ravens have been targeting Tyrann Mathieu for a long time, and there's been whispers about that, go get them. You can win through free agency, but I just don't understand the notion that that's, the big thing to do is to find winning teams in free agency. Like, they did that in 2000. That used to be popular, like, in a different era of football, but that hasn't really been the winning recipe. Then we have Raven Ron. Don't need 10 picks, use 4 and trade up. I don't know about that. I feel like they could use 10 picks. And if you're going to trade up, I would rather trade for a player. I'd rather trade for a proven commodity, like a starting right tackle or a proven starter with a third or a fourth round pick, or maybe a third this year and a fourth next year or something like that, as opposed to, trading up from the 45th pick to the 27th pick to go get someone, whatever. I would really like to see the Ravens make a trade for a tackle if there's one that could be had. Spencer wants to burn Ravens Twitter to the ground. I'm just, everybody thinks they're the smartest person in the room. And yeah, everybody thinks they're the smartest person in the room. No toxicity 2022, but just like, I don't know. I feel like there's been a lot of dumping on the Ravens organization, and people say it's because I want to be the next Ryan Mink or something. No, they just like one of the more winning franchises in the NFL over the last couple of years, like over the last decade. In the 2010s, they were have won the 6th most games. In the last 10 years, they won the 7th most games. Like, they had an off year, and everybody's got some crazy idea about what they're doing wrong and all this stuff. And it's there's just more luck involved than anything else. I don't know.
It just feels like paralysis. It just feels like there's, for a long time, there definitely was a sentiment that you have to agree with everything they did. And this was during kind of right after they had won the Super Bowl and Ozzie had earned a lot of cachet and a lot of sweat equity. It was oh, trust in Ozzie, everyone just sit back and just let them do whatever they're going to do. And that was probably true at times, but it's also maybe take your foot off the gas a little bit. They're not perfect. It feels like the pendulum is kind of swinging so far in the other direction now, where people are just kind of making arguments against strong.
Treating the Ravens like they're a laughing stock is what, it feels like.
Yeah, and
they're a joke of an organization.
They're making kind of straw man arguments at this point. Nobody thinks that they're perfect. Nobody thinks it's, to use Voss's word, unimpeachable. It's just I think at both sides, need to kind of thaw out a little bit. Let's all soak our heads and just chill out.
For sure. And to get critical of DaCosta, I think, in hindsight now, Tavon Young, very injured player, not a great deal, probably going to end up getting cut or asked to take a huge cut this year. Nick Boyle, they offer him an extension right after he comes off of major injury. And Alejandro Villanueva didn't work out. Those 3 guys were not great and could have had a better player. Absolutely could have kept Judon or, whatever you want to call it, even though it's not quite 1-to-1. Those, Judon's going to be having big cap hits for the next 3 years. Those guys aren't, but there have been misses. Every team has misses. That's the thing. Every team has misses. And I don't know. I guess we want to look at the Super Bowl and make a statement based off of every Super Bowl. But to me, it's more so looking at the teams that have made it to the conference championship over the last 5-6 years and trying to pick up trends from that. And, the one common trend right now is kind of running the Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay style wide zone offense. That's a big takeaway. 3 out of 4 teams doing that, things like that. But, the Chiefs dealt out how much money for Frank Clark, and what the hell has he done in the last couple of years? There's misses on every roster, on every GM. They all have misses. The Rams had to the Rams essentially paid Jared Goff and Matt Stafford this year $45 million and found themselves in a good position, whatever. But I don't know. If they had just won one more playoff game, I think if the Ravens beat the Titans or beat the Bills, everyone else would be more quiet. And it's the flip of the coin between those 2 games, how things turned out, and the variables that can go wrong, the luck, the fact that the football is an oblong thing that can do some strange things when it hits the ground, not turning on their side makes everyone 10 times more weary. If they'd won one more playoff game, not even won a Super Bowl, not even gotten that close to a Super Bowl, everyone would have a different spin on the Ravens and not as much of a sour taste in their mouth. But it's I feel that is true, and it's in reality not that big of a deal. I don't know. I'm just feeling a little analysis paralysis, and everything that they've ever done is bad, and that's kind of the sentiment. And there's this snide kind of blanket of sarcasm and condescending tones about, I don't know, as if the Ravens are some joke of a franchise. There's all these jokes all the time, nonstop. Oh, the Ravens are going to wait until free agency opens March 14th. Guess the Ravens will be signing guys March 18th. It's how many big name guys have they signed in free agency? They have the free agency is like part of who they are as a franchise in the last 10, 15 years. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm excited for new things to happen, and I feel like everyone will get out of that cloud. I think that's just the point that we're at in the year, and people expected the Ravens to be in the playoffs. They were the 1 seed at one point during the season. It didn't make the playoffs, so it's just giving everyone extra time to stew and get really witty and snickery and crafty and sneering and whatever. So it'll be over soon.
I hope so. There's a lot of snide, condescension, kind of pissiness going on right now, and I could do without it as well, for the record. So yeah, let's look forward to that. There will be stuff to actually analyze in a couple weeks, which is fun. A little bit of combine stuff, a little bit of free agency. It'll start obviously 4 days after everyone else. We've already established that, so let's keep those jokes coming because they make Spencer laugh every single time. So yeah, we've got all that out of the way. And I guess we've gotten the show out of the way, bud. What do you say?
Yeah, combine coming up. Just a couple guys that I'm going to be watching for. Snoop Connor out of Mississippi, running back, kind of later round running back. Excited to see what he can do. A couple other backs, but ultimately Calvin Austin, the third out of Memphis, probably going to run, low 4.3, maybe hits 4.2. Traylon Burks, excited to see what he turns in at the combine. Drake London, I think, is interesting, a basketball player. Not sure how explosive he's going to test. Wandale Robinson, I think, is an exciting one that we could see turn in a pretty slick combine. We'll see how the Ohio State receivers do. Christian Watson, another interesting one. Tight ends, I don't know that there's some crazy athlete, but Chigakwanko out of Maryland, I think, will have a nice combine. Probably a later round guy. I'm really excited to see what Charles Cross does. Really excited to see what Ike Ekwonu does. Daniel Falele. I think that Evan Neal is going to test through the roof from being on the Bruce Feldman freak list. I'm just trying to rattle through another couple guys to watch for here as well. I'm excited to see what Jordan Davis weighs in at. I'm excited to see Arnold Ebikebi, Kingsley Enagbare, Logan Hall, another one to watch out for. I think that Karlaftis is getting pegged kind of as a, white boy can't run or something, but apparently he's ready to turn in a 4.7. He was on Bruce Feldman's freak list, was a track and field stud. So I'm excited to see what he can do. Majay Sanders is lighter. I think he can turn in a nice combine. Could see Kayvon Thibodeau tearing it up. Sam Williams as well, former 5-star. Devontae Wyatt has done some crazy stuff. So a lot of fun guys in this group. I'm excited to see how Jalen Petrie tests, someone that I've been really high on for a long time. I think if he turns in a nice solid RAS, we're going to go ahead and lock him down as somebody I think would be a great fit for the Ravens. These corners, Derek Stingley, probably going to blow the roof off the combine. A 4.2, 4.3 guy. JT Woods out of Baylor can run. Tariq Woolen hit 22.65 miles per hour in Mobile. We'll see how that translates to a 40. So just a couple quick names to watch out for there. I'm excited to see how those linebackers kind of delineate themselves. I've been, contemplating the idea of sending Leo Chanel to Russia and just letting him deal with Putin. I'm excited to see what kind of combine he turns in. Guy, we've seen videos of him putting up 225, 40 times, apparently much better athlete than people expect, considering he's more of a kind of a run-stuffing down player.
Hopefully he's not going to be playing Putin in hockey. Because
I don't know, man.
He played hockey on his birthday, and he scored like 15 goals in that game that one time.
Yeah.
How Kim Jong-un played golf, and he had like 9 hole-in-ones, and he shot like a 36 on 18 holes. It's the greatest round ever.
It was the greatest round ever. Shout out to him for just continuing to be the greatest.
Well, he's since passed on, but yes, for at the time he was. But yeah, any other guys you're looking at?
Yeah, Chanel, Damone Clark out of LSU looks the part. Jermaine Johnson, that's my boy. I think I'm going to be.
He's your guy. You've been really piping up about him lately. I watched him. Maybe I watched the wrong game and I didn't love him, so I'm gonna dive back in on that.
I don't know, man. I watched some Georgia from 2020 and liked what I saw there too. He was rotational, but I think he played 7 games, had 5 sacks at Georgia, and was in.
Yeah, I didn't watch
rotational role
most recent year, which might be an issue.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see all those guys, how they test ultimately. And yeah, I think there's a lot of funny narratives that come out. Creed Humphrey's not an athlete was a funny one last year. He ends up putting in like a 9.9 RAS. So we'll kind of see guys dispel some myths or rumors or fall or slide. And I'm excited. First combine in a couple of years. I love the combine. Not everything's that important. 40 times don't make or break guys necessarily, but I think there's a lot of thresholds that are conducive to success, and I'm excited. We haven't had it in a couple of years. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun and a nice reprieve from not having it, and to move on into the next season.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. It's like ASMR for clowns like us. You throw it on in the background and just listen to the soothing dulcet tones of Rich Eisen on in the background all day. I'm looking forward to it as well.
Run, Rich, run. Yeah, Nick Cross definitely going to test really well. Definitely going to be a flyer. We've got Mr. Freestyle in the comments. Nick Cross can run, man.
I'll check him out. Okay, bud. So I guess that's all we got at this point.
Yep, that does it.
Cool beans. Well, thank you guys for listening. Obviously, slightly devoid of sort of news and really just sort of actionable talking points here. But I feel like we got through this one pretty good. We had some good talks, as always happens. So, yeah, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week. Be sure to follow the show on social if you're not already. It is at Podcast Beatdown on Twitter. I am at Jake Luke. That is LOUQUE. Spencer is Ravens 4 Dummies. That's the number 4 in the middle. Thank you guys as always for listening, and we'll talk to you again next week.
See ya.
Arrivederci.
Where is the wise man? Where is the scholar? Where is the philosopher of this age? Get down! Baltimore!
What are they getting? Everything out of me. They gonna get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that. Believe that.